Happy day. I am Dr. Kavin from the Postgraduate Department of Human Resource Management. Today's session deals with trust and organizational justice. As we all know, for organizations to survive today, it is very important that they manage their talent effectively. In order to manage talent effectively, it is important that organizations gain and maintain the trust of their employees. As we know, trust is a very scarce resource. Building trust is difficult, but losing it is easy. In today's session, we will be looking at organizational justice perception as an antecedent to trust. We will be looking at the factors that influence trust and the benefits of trust. Let us now look at the importance of trust. Trust has been defined by Colquitt, Lepine, and Western as the willingness to be vulnerable to a trustee based on positive expectations about the trustee's actions and intentions. Here, the trustee represents organizational authorities like CEO, members of top management, managers, and supervisors who are the face of the organization for the stakeholders. Trust also involves a little bit of vulnerability, being vulnerable based on future expectations of behavior. For example, suppliers will supply products to organizations only if they believe that the organization will fulfill the contract. Likewise, investors will invest money only if they believe that their investment will be profitable. The same applies for customers and employees. An organization's trust directly impacts its reputation. Let us now look at some research relating to trust. According to a research study done by Edelman, with data being collected from over 25 countries from over 40,000 respondents, they have determined that trust in a brand influences consumer purchase decisions. In fact, according to the study, consumers who trust a brand are 7 times more likely to purchase from a brand rather than consumers who distrust the brand. So here, trust in a brand supersedes all other criteria when it comes to consumer purchase decision. The study also indicates that when it comes to estimating a brand's integrity, it is very essential that the organization treat its employees fairly. If you look at the study shows that whether employees are paid fairly and whether they are treated in a fair manner has a direct influence on an organization's ability to gain trust from its customers. Let us now look at the benefits of employee trust. When employees trust an organization, they are willing to share ideas. They are willing to collaborate with others. They are willing to work in teams, and this leads to innovation. Employees who are satisfied with organizations and trust an organization are also likely to be more satisfied with their jobs, they are committed, and there will be lesser turnover. This results in better employee engagement, as a result, better organizational performance. Let us now look at the factors that influence trust level among individuals. Trust level among individuals is influenced by these 3 factors. The first being trust propensity, the second being feelings towards trustees, and the third factor that influences is the trustworthiness of the trustee. The first factor of trust propensity is based on the disposition of the individual. Every individual is likely to trust or distrust others based on their nature or based on their past experiences. An individual who has had fostering, nurturing relationships in the past is more likely to trust organizations. On the other hand, an individual who has been exposed to bad experiences is less likely to trust organizations. The second factor that determines the trust level of an individual is the feelings that the truster has towards the trustee. Here, if a person likes or dislikes the other person, this influences their ability to trust or distrust the other person. So, hence, this is affect-based trust. The third factor that influences trust levels is the trustworthiness of the individual. The trustworthiness of an individual is determined based on their ability, benevolence, and integrity. This is cognitive based trust. Here there is a rational assessment of the trust level of the individual. So the individual here does a rational assessment on whether they can or they cannot trust another individual. Let us now look at how this factor of trustworthiness is linked to organizational justice perception. Cognition-based trust. We are looking at cognition-based trust because it is this that the organizations can influence. Now, when it comes to joining an organization, organizations are usually assessed on the basis of their competence, their altruism, and based on their integrity, or whether they have a very strong moral compass. Very often it is very difficult to assess these factors for a new employee. The way in which a new employee can assess these is based on their perceptions of whether their interactions with the organization has organizational justice. Let us now begin by defining what is organizational justice. Organizational justice refers to the extent to which employees perceive workplace procedures, interactions, and outcomes to be fair in nature. So, organizational justice is basically a perception of fairness. Is the organization fair or not? Organizational justice has three dimensions, namely distributive justice, procedural justice, and interactional justice. Interactional justice in turn has two subdivisions, namely informational justice and interpersonal justice. Let us now look at these three factors in detail. Distributive justice. Distributive justice is the perceived fairness of decision-making outcomes. Here, the outcomes could be work assignments, it could be opportunities for training and development, and rewards, organizational rewards. Here, the fairness of the decisions is assessed based on either equality, it could be assessed based on need, or it could be assessed based on equity. This varies from situation to situation. Need forms the basis of assessment of fairness when it comes to flexible working arrangements. For example, employees who have dependents in their family may require more flexible working arrangements. Or when it comes to training and development opportunities, these could be provided based on the training needs of the employees. So here, need becomes the basis for assessing fairness in this situation. Equality becomes the basis of assessment of fairness when it comes to group assignments and group rewards. Usually, teams who are working on group assignments are all rewarded equally. So here, equality forms the basis of assessment of justice. The third is equity. Equity or merit-based assessment. Employees would like their rewards to be in line with the level of effort that they put into the organization. So now we have looked at distributive justice. Now let us now look at procedural justice. Distributive justice looked at what decisions are made. Procedural justice looks at how are these decisions made. Procedural justice is the fairness of decision-making processes. Assessment of procedural justice is usually done on the basis of whether the employee has a say in the proceedings. It could also be on the basis of whether the decision-making is done consistently across people and over time. And is there option for correcting an incorrect decision? These three factors along with bias suppression. Is there any bias in the process? Is one group enjoying an unfair advantage over the other? All these factors put together determine procedural justice. Let us now look at an example of this. When it comes to performance appraisals, we need to ask ourselves these questions. We need to ask whether the employee can express their opinion openly during the performance appraisal process. If the employee feels that he or she has received an incorrect rating, is there scope for the employee to get it corrected? And is the performance appraisal process the same across people? Is the same process followed? And also the last question that we need to ask ourselves is, are all employees treated fairly during the performance appraisal process? Is it objective? If the answer to all these questions is yes, then it means that there is procedural justice in this process. Let us now look at interactional justice. Interactional justice looks at the fairness of the interaction process that the employee has with the organizational authorities. If you remember, the organizational authorities are the face of the organization. They are represented by the CEOs, the managers, and the supervisors. Here, there are two types of justice, namely interpersonal and informational justice. Interpersonal justice is determined by whether there is respect and propriety in the transactions that the employee has with the organizational authorities. So, if there is interpersonal justice, it means that the employee will be treated with respect. A situation where there is abusive supervision signals a lack of interpersonal justice. Informational justice is based on whether the employee has been given justification for decisions. Is the justification given in a truthful manner? So, when it comes to layoffs in organizations, what usually happens is that there is an information asymmetry. The top management does not share information with its employees for fear that they will be sued. However, research indicates that when an organization shares information with its employees, they are more likely to perceive that there is informational justice. Even when it comes to policies and procedures, if an organization clearly outlines its policies and procedures, this leads to informational justice. So, the information has to be timely and it has to be accurate. Let us now look at how these three factors are linked to organizational practices. Right from when the employee joins the organization till the time the employee leaves the organization, there needs to be procedural, distributive and interactional justice in practices such as onboarding, training and development, performance appraisal, compensation, rewards and promotion. I can understand that it's going to be very difficult for an organization to be fair at all times. However, in those circumstances, when an employee is disgruntled or has a grievance, if the policies and procedures are clear and if the employee has a voice, if the employee can voice an opinion and feel that their opinion is heard, this leads to an improvement in the perception that there is organizational justice in the organization. Now, let us look at the outcomes of organizational justice perception. The outcomes of organizational justice perception is that an organization that is perceived to be just is an organization that can be trusted. When employees trust an organization, they are likely to be satisfied with the organization, they are likely to be committed, they are likely to engage in contextual behaviors and citizenship behaviors, and they are likely to stay with the organization longer. This in turn will result in more innovation, it will result in customer satisfaction, it will also result in revenue and increased sales for the organization. Hence, an employee's trust in an organization allows them to go above and beyond the call of duty, whereby at the end of the day, the organization becomes more effective. Let us now summarize what we have seen during this session. In this session, we have looked at the importance of trust. We have looked at why is trust important. We have defined trust. We have looked at the three factors that influence trust. We have looked at the link between organizational trust and organizational justice. We have looked at the dimensions of organizational justice and its implications for the bottom line of the organization. I hope you enjoyed listening to this session on trust and organizational justice. We will meet once again with another interesting topic. Thank you.